This video is supported by Brilliant.org. Elon Musk wants to send hundreds of people to Mars. Jeff Bezos wants to put millions of people in space to live and work. Two eccentric billionaires with big eccentric dreams. There's only one problem with it. Actually, there are like a million problems, but one thing at a time. If people are going to live and work and travel for months and even years at a time in space, they're going to need a place to live up there. Enter another eccentric billionaire, Robert Bigelow, and his company Bigelow Aerospace. At the time of this recording, the International Space Station has been occupied for 18 years, 3 months, and 18 days. If somebody was born the first day it was occupied, they could vote now. And that's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. The ISS is truly a wonder of the modern world. Of course, it can only house 6 people at a time, and most of the time that they're on there is spent doing scientific experiments and just maintaining the space station. And then there's the cost of the ISS, which has been described as the single most expensive item ever made in history at $150 billion. And it was serviced and built using 36 flights on a space shuttle at $1.6 billion per flight. If we're going to expand our presence in space, we're going to have to do better than that. Of course, the biggest problem with putting up places to live in space is the size of the modules that people would be living in, because there's only so much you can fit in a payload fairing. And one technology to get around that is inflatable habitats. With inflatable modules, what you actually launch into space is only a fraction of the size of the actual module once it's inflated. That means that something that can fit inside a standard payload fairing could expand to much bigger sizes than what we could possibly do right now. And this technology became the passion project of real estate tycoon Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow grew up in Las Vegas and still lives there today. Vegas, of course, is known for all the lights and the flash and the spectacle, but back in the 1950s, it was known for a different kind of lights and flash and spectacle. Atomic bombs. Yeah, so the area around Las Vegas was actually a testing ground for the United States nuclear program. They would just blow up nuclear bombs in the open air, like you do. And the people who lived in Las Vegas, that was like entertainment for them. They would go out and watch these bombs go off, like you do. No judgment, I'd watch that shit. And it turns out growing up, seeing some of the most destructive bombs in the history of mankind blowing up in his backyard had quite an impact on little Robert Bigelow, and it spurred an interest in science that he carried with him for the rest of his life. And he took particular interest in the space race. Of course, everybody was interested in the space race back then, but unfortunately for him, he felt like he didn't really have the math skills that was necessary to really compete in the space race of the 50s and 60s, and that's not a judgment against him. Most people don't have those kinds of math skills. It's called rocket science for a reason, but luckily for him, he did have amazing business skills. Business skills that he put to work in the real estate market, and he became massively successful. By the 1990s, Robert Bigelow was a multi-billionaire, due mostly in part to his ownership of Budget Suites of America, and this was when he decided to put his long secret plan into action. Yeah, a plan that he apparently kept secret from everyone, including his wife. And that plan was to invest $500 million of his own money to create the world's first commercial space station. And with that goal in mind, in 1999, he founded Bigelow Aerospace. And one of the first things they did at Bigelow Aerospace was license technology from NASA for inflatable habitats. Okay, so I don't know if this was just some lucky timing of their part or if this was something they'd been following and they were kind of capitalizing on, but in the 90s, as final preparations were being put into place for the ISS, NASA was working on an inflatable habitat program called TransHab. TransHab was an inflatable module that could expand out to 11 meters long and 8.2 meters in diameter, almost twice as wide as the current modules on the space station. All in all, it would provide 339 cubic meters of space, and it would be divided into 4 levels to provide storage, living quarters, and workout areas. And it was a great idea, but as the cost of the ISS began to rise, the political pressure got bigger for NASA to cancel the program in the year 2000, and that's when Bigelow Aerospace bought up all the patents that they created for it. And they put these patents to work immediately on the Genesis program. These were 2 different inflatable habitats that they sent up into space. They were unmanned. They were just there to test all the different systems and make sure that they were worthy for human spaceflight. They built and launched 2 Genesis missions. Genesis 1 launched from Russia in July of 2006. Genesis 2 launched in June of 2007. These unmanned modules expand to 4.4 meters in length and 2.5 meters in diameter and are filled with science experiments and sensors to monitor the environment. And they also had some fun, allowing the public to place an item in the module and then video the items floating around the cabin, everything from ashes to pictures to business cards, which they could then watch on their web feed, all for the low, low price of $299. And they also attempted to play space bingo using the microgravity of space to mix up the bingo balls and projected images on the side of the module, describing it as the first billboard in space. But the main job of the Genesis mission was just to test the viability of these inflatable habitats in space, and in that, they were a success. They maintained contact with it for 2.5 years, which was actually beyond the scope of the original mission, and they're still up there today, actually. They're probably going to deorbit in the next year or so because they're slowly losing altitude, and when they do, it's probably going to be quite a sight. Following the Genesis program, there were 2 other projects from Bigelow that they were going to launch up there, getting progressively bigger and more sophisticated. One was called Sundancer, and one was called Galaxy. But these never really got beyond the prototype stage because, as it turned out, NASA reached out to see if they could put an expandable module on the space station. Around 2010, NASA started re-examining the whole idea of expandable habitats, and they took a look at the Genesis program. They liked what they saw, and they decided, instead of reinventing the wheel, here's Bigelow, here's the company that's already working on it. So they just contracted with them to make one for the space station. And the result was BEAM, which stands for Bigelow Expandable Activity Module, which launched on the SpaceX CRS-8 mission in April of 2016. BEAM packed away to a tiny 2.26 meters by 2.36 meters, and then inflated to 4.01 by 3.23 meters, adding 16 cubic meters of space to the ISS when attached. Now, BEAM is very much an experimental program. This isn't like a space where the astronauts are hanging out and playing ping pong or anything. It's just mostly used for storage, and in fact, they keep the door closed on it when they're not specifically using it. But that's okay, because it's all there just to test this technology. They monitor the conditions inside of it, and they're just making sure that it's something that could actually be used for human habitation later on. It was designed to be tested for 2 years, and they're studying how well it holds up to micrometeoroids, its thermal insulation, protection from radiation, mechanical durability, and long-term leak performance. And so far, it's passed with flying colors. After about a year, they recorded that it actually had gotten a few micrometeorite impacts, but it didn't look like it had penetrated the surface in any way, and the radiation levels inside are just the same as they are in the rest of the ISS. In fact, in 2017, its 2-year mission was expanded to 2020, with the option to extend it 2 more times beyond that. Now, since I mentioned it, it's probably got you guys curious exactly how it protects against micrometeoroids and radiation. Well, let me tell you, my friends. Let me tell you. So first of all, they use multiple levels, and by multiple, I mean like 24 different levels of a type of material called Vectran, which is twice as strong as Kevlar, and that's what they make bulletproof vests out of. And Bigelow actually states that these flexible, inflatable habitats are actually stronger than the rigid hulls that we normally see on the ISS, because that flexibility allows the energy to dissipate across the surface instead of allowing whatever it is to puncture through. And as for the radiation shielding, they use multiple levels of a closed-cell polymer foam that, according to a 2002 NASA study, quote, "Materials that have high hydrogen content, such as polyethylene, can reduce primary and secondary radiation to a greater extent than metals, such as aluminum." So it seems counterintuitive, but these inflatable habitats could actually provide better protection against impacts and radiation than what they're currently using on the ISS. Feel free to debate that statement down in the comments. Now, all of this is well and good, but Bigelow's ultimate goal is to create a commercial space station, one that can be rented out by space tourists, by science labs, and by industry and manufacturing companies. The 3 projects they've launched so far and the 2 canceled programs were all just experimental tests leading up to their flagship module, the B330. This bad boy is 16.8 meters long and 6.7 meters wide, and has 1/3 the volume of the entire ISS. It's been described as a one-launch space station and can comfortably house 6 crew members. It features massive solar panels for power generation and 2 large thermal grids to release heat. And of course, it's modular, meaning it can dock with multiple other habitats, which again, 3 of these would be larger than the ISS. This is what Bigelow has been working on from the very beginning, and to show how serious they are about this, in February of last year, 2018, they created a subsidiary company called Bigelow Space Operations, whose sole purpose is to manage and promote the B330 to partners. And one of those partners is ULA, who plans to launch the first B330 on the Atlas V rocket in the year 2020. The B330, of course, is just the jumping off point. Bigelow has released plans for all kinds of designs, from a 3-module concept they call Space Complex Alpha, to a 4-module design called Space Complex Beta, to lunar stations, deep space stations, and Mars exploration stations. The B330 could play a vital role in the proposed lunar orbiting station that NASA has their eyes on, and they even have a version they're designing that could work as a habitat on the surface of the moon. So they're kind of running with this. But if that doesn't get you in a techno-tizzy, they actually have even bigger plans than the B330. Much bigger plans. This is the BA-2100, 17.8 meters long, 12.6 meters wide, and 2.5 times the volume of the entire International Space Station. Also called the Olympus, this is a monstrous space habitat capable of housing 16 people at a time, with the potential to be an actual space hotel. But this ain't no budget suites. Get it? Because that's Robert Bigelow's company. Rides aboard the Olympus are set to cost $25 million for 10 days in space, which actually, believe it or not, is a lot cheaper than what's going right now. Now, there's also the issue that even shrunken down before it gets inflated, there's not a rocket out there right now that could launch this into orbit, although the SpaceX Starship/BFR could possibly do it, possibly the New Glenn when that comes online, so we'll see. Now, all this is really exciting because real disruption occurs when multiple technologies converge at the same time. And what with the rise of private rocket companies, and now we could have private space habitats, we could actually be in a position in the next 10 or 20 years to be able to go up and stay overnight at a hotel in space. And it is kind of the next logical step. You know, once upon a time, only nations were able to put satellites up into space, and then it became possible for private companies to create satellites and put those up. And in doing so, it completely revolutionized our communication and navigation technologies. In the last 5 years or so, private companies have made serious headway into the launch market, and pretty soon we're actually going to have privately launched manned missions up into space, starting this year, hopefully. And the next pin to fall might be private space stations, thanks to Bigelow Aerospace. So the big question, would you do it? If you got a toy in the next cereal box that you open saying you could go take a flight up to space and stay in one of these inflatable habitats, would you be down for that? Talk about it in the comments. And if the answer is yes, you might want to have a basic understanding of orbital mechanics and why things go up and how to keep them from coming back down. And if you're interested in learning more about that, a good place to go is Brilliant.org. What? You didn't see that coming. Brilliant is a learning platform that teaches you core scientific principles by walking you through a series of puzzles and riddles to help you to figure out how it all works on your own. Think about the worst class you took in school. It was probably just a bunch of names and dates and numbers and just rote memorization of things that have absolutely no impact on your life whatsoever, right? Brilliant's the opposite of that. Brilliant makes you think like a scientist, learning things while solving problems, and the things you learn teach you interesting things about the world around you. And now they've got a daily problems program where every day you solve a problem that teaches you a different core scientific principle so you can get a little bit smarter every single day. Sorry, Destin. You can sign up for free at brilliant.org/answerswithjoe and get weekly access to their brain teasers and puzzles. And for the first 200 people that sign up for the premium subscription that gives you access to all their courses, you get 20% off your subscription for life. So get cracking. Just go to brilliant.org/answerswithjoe. Links down in the description. Big thanks to Brilliant for supporting this channel, and as always, a huge shout out to my answer files on Patreon that are keeping the lights on around here, building a great community, and keeping me honest. You're good people. We got some new people that have joined. Let me murder the names real quick. We got John Michael, Kariel Iqbal, R. Alan Boyle, Jonathan McMurray, Mark Majo, or Maho, anyway. Benjamin Rosenberg, Jared Jenkins, Ed, Kyle Nunley, Robert Graham MD, Colin Valton, Roger Weiss, Joe Johnson, Mikhail Gardner, Rodrigo Fontes de Resende, Martin Consake, and Tyler and Raymond Impastado. Thank you guys so much. If you would like to join them, get early access to videos and access to me, and just join a really awesome community, you can go to patreon.com/answerswithjoe. Please do like and share this video if you liked it, and if this is your first time here, check out this video. Google thinks you'll like that. Check out some of these others with my face on it, and if you like those, please do subscribe. I come back with videos just like this every Monday and every Thursday. With that, I'll leave you to it. Thanks again for watching. You guys go out now, have an eye-opening week, and I'll see you on Monday. Love you guys. Take care.